Hello and welcome to Salopians. It's episode 4 of the season. Welcome back on the podcast, Mike. How you doing?
All right, yeah. It's the end of the transfer window slamming shut, so we've got plenty to talk about today, but probably not as much as we wanted. But so I'm doing all right, but I'm a little bit annoyed about today. But yeah, I feel always like I'm annoyed. I introduce myself as annoyed every time, so we should take that as read from now on, shall we?
And welcome back on the podcast, Chris. How you doing? What's your gut feeling quickly after the window shut?
I feel like it's going to be a tight run into the end. Well, certainly until January. I think the aim now until January is just to try and keep our heads in the game, as it were. Make sure ideally we're outside the bottom two, or if we're in the bottom two, that it's close. I just don't want to see us like last season, where by January we were as good as doomed, as it were. We want to keep ourselves in the race, and it's depressing that here we are in League Two, and what we're talking about is, have we got enough to stay in the Football League? That's not the conversation I wanted to be happening 6 games into the season.
No, certainly not. Just before we kind of jump into it, also didn't tell you guys I was going to mention this, but the podcast obviously started in 2016, and over the last few weeks we've just went over 300,000 listens. Okay. Obviously now we do YouTube as well, so numbers not the same, but yeah, just on SoundCloud alone, which takes everything for Spotify and all that, of 301,000. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening. So the window closed. Shrewsbury Town.
First of all, I have to stop you there. Dan would make me stop you and tell you have to refer to it as being slammed shut every time. Just because he's not here, I can't let you get away with it. The window always slams shut.
So the window is slammed shut, Mike, and 2 people have been kicked out the door. So Max Matter's departed and Savin has departed. He's gone to Wigan. Max Matter was just released. And then we brought one player in. But maybe, Chris, worth just noting why it's important that players are released today. What's the significance of that?
Yeah, so if a player is released before the window closes, slam shut, sorry, Mike. If a player is released by before 7 o'clock tonight, it leaves them free to go out and find another club, sign for anyone. You know, they could sign for somebody tomorrow, any time between now and the end of the season. They can go and play for someone else. If a player is released tomorrow, or even right now, frankly, after the 7 o'clock deadline, they're not allowed to register for a new club until the window opens again in January, because their previous club held their registration when the window shut. So the significance for players getting released is so that they can go and find other clubs. So that allows Max Matter, I mean, he's obviously going to go probably, I presume, back to New Zealand, but had he been staying in the UK, he'd be able to go and sign for another club now. And you look on social media, loads of clubs releasing players this evening, and those players are now free to pop up at other clubs. And I dare say Michael Appleton will be looking at the list of players who've suddenly become available in the last 24 hours, because there's quite a few of them. And in theory, maybe 1 or 2 of those will pop up in a Shrewsbury shirt over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, quite an important thing. And it does mean, even though the window's shut, at a few clubs, there'll still be business over the next few days.
Yep, cheers for that, Chris. And I think, one of the things that the window gave fans, and I think why fans are quite despondent online, is that the window gave us hope. Hope of change, hope of new players, hope. And now we're all hoping maybe we can sign some free transfers, which is really scraping the barrel of hope in terms of going forward, Mike.
Yeah, I think I certainly saw it as our last opportunity to right the ship. I think we've started on a pretty poor trajectory. Obviously, we're second bottom, whatever it is. And the squad that we've got has got us there. And this was the opportunity to bolster the ranks, to clear some of the dead wood with players who are currently active, I suppose you'd call it. Either a signing from another club who's been playing, or a youth player who's been active in the sort of the lower sort of junior levels of football. The point about free agents, they might have been playing recently, but some of the people we've been linked to haven't had a club since the start of the year. They are always quite slow to get up and running if you sign them that have been out with the club at the start of the season. So I feel like the business that we've done today, well, to date, actually, I suppose you'd call it rather than today.
Yeah, we need to count a few. Yeah, go back a few days to Friday.
Yeah. So, but the business we've done, we'll go through them individually. But I think it hasn't added two of the three things we need. I think we needed pace, which I think we've addressed a bit. We didn't address the gaping hole at left back, which Klukas is doing a decent job of covering at the moment, but I don't think he can play a full season there. Because of his age and because it's not really his natural position. And also a tackling midfielder in the middle of the park is another glaring hole that we haven't addressed in advance of the window shut. And so for me, not a brilliant performance in the window, rather on either on ingoings or outgoings. I don't know what you think of that, Chris. I think I'm being a bit harsh, but that's my take on it.
So that's a squad of 22 players. 11 of those are summer signings. So exactly half the squad is new. Of the other 11, that includes Isaac England, who I don't think we can, he wasn't involved last season. So there's 10 players there left over
and
from
Stuart,
last season. I
don't think you can really count Stuart, to be fair, either.
Yeah, sorry. If we take him out as well, and then 9, you've got 9 players still from last season. So we've cleared a lot. But yeah, I don't think there's any denying that we wanted it to be a bit more. You've got Nurse and Gilead on that list. As it stands, they're still with us. There's a chance that maybe one or both of them might have gone, and it hasn't been announced yet. I mean, there's still deals as we're talking on this podcast being announced tonight. It's a moving feast, as it were. So it may change a little bit. I think is the squad better than last season's? I think it probably is. Is it as much better as we'd want it to be? I think it probably isn't. And I'd agree with the comments Mike's made about the gaps in it. In fact, I'd add to those gaps. Ironically, I'd talk about the centre-backs as well. We signed 3 of those, and they made a big deal of signing centre-backs. But we've only got 4 out-and-out centre-backs, and then we're relying on George Nurse, if he's still at the club, and Tom Sang as the other covers to come and play in that position.
Hall as well could play a right-sided centre-back.
I just don't. I think it's such an important position. I don't want to be relying all the time on makeshift centre-backs. No. I would have loved us to have had either the budget to have got a decent lone centre-back, a young one who's a bit quicker, because clearly that's something that's missing in defence as well, or even a permanent signing that just brings a little bit more energy into that defence, because there's no denying that in game after game this season, much as those 3 that we've signed are experienced players, they have looked, I think we're all honest, they've looked exposed so far at times. And I'd like to think there's more to come from some of them, especially, I think Boyle's improving. Anderson, I thought, was as good as he's been so far in the game against Accrington last weekend. But overall, I think the 3 of them, there's been, massive room for improvement. And they're going to have to show that improvement, because we haven't really got anyone else to step in and do it for them.
So just to kind of recap what's happened since the last time we did a podcast. So we've Savin's gone in goal. So if you're listening on the YouTube video, we now got the squad up on the screen. So Savin has gone and Brooke has come in. So Brooke came in, who was on, I guess, a week by week or month by month contract at Leamington Spa. He's a youth player, went through the Leeds Youth Academy, went to Nottingham Forest, got released, and then has obviously ended up at Shrewsbury. So he's our backup goalkeeper. And then also last Friday as well, we got Kabir on loan from Arsenal, who's probably the star of the loan signings so far. He seemed quite good. And then also we signed a striker. And Chris, do you want to have a go at pronouncing? And you did a little bit of research.
Oh, I did, and you're going to make me go and check it now because it's such a difficult name. Yeah, Bradley Ihunvion, I think is how you pronounce it. Ihunvion or something.
We need the Stuart Dunn pronunciation.
Well, I kind of Googled it and found one of these sites that literally says names to it. It's a name of Nigerian heritage, and apparently it's Ihunvion. And he's...
Okay, well, there you go. I said it.
And I'm relying on Google there, so if I'm wrong, Bradley, I apologise.
And what's your thoughts on those signings, Chris?
Brooke, we have no idea, do we? The one thing that stands out for me is somehow we've ended up with even less experienced goalkeepers than last season. So last year we signed a 23-year-old Toby Savin as our first choice goalkeeper and backed him up with a 22-year-old Joe Young. At least Savin had actually quite a lot of Football League experience. Joe Young had none. This time around, we've got Eli Harrison, who's come in on loan from Man United, still a teenager, and we've given him his first Football League experience. And his backup is now a 21-year-old who, as it stands, has never played a professional game of football. So it's quite a gamble. It's quite a gamble.
Harrison has got called up for England to under-20s, which means...
So Brooke could be making his debut at Barnet on Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, and then who's the backup?
Well, there wouldn't be
Anderson,
one, would there?
Stubbs, Boyle? who are good to go in goal. Maybe Sankey can play quite a lot of positions.
Why not? But it's a gamble. He might turn out to be brilliant, but who knows? But it's a hell of a gamble. Brooke presumably is going to play against Walsall tomorrow night in that EFL trophy game, so we'll get a chance to have a look at him then. But it's a gamble. Bradley Hunvian is a player who I think there's been a lot of hype about him. He's supposed to be an exciting player, lots of pace, lots of energy. Seems to have attitude problems, or at least he does. If you listen to Darren Ferguson or to Darren McAntony, clearly they've been frustrated with him at
problems
Peterborough
themselves, so they're probably not the best references, to be fair.
You could say that, but they've obviously had their issues with him and they've been willing to let him go. But, they've had a good record with signing young players in the Football League, and they spent a fair chunk of money on him. So, and again, at least he's got some experience. He's only 21, but he's played, he's not coming in here not really knowing what to expect. He's played League Two football, and he's coming to play under a coach now who's got a reputation of being good with young players. So I presume that's part of Peterborough's thinking. If they're thinking that he needs a fresh start, and they've probably looked at a manager who they think might be able to help him. So, let's hope they're right, because we certainly need him to fire, because our other forwards so far haven't.
He's not a goal scorer. He doesn't have a record as a goal scorer. So 32 games for Colchester. Mike is going to love this. 5 goals, 32 games, 5
Brilliant.
goals.
I can't wait for
He went on loan to
so
Moldrun and Triptree. I've never heard of them before. On loan, 13 games, 2 goals, and 17 games at Peterborough and 1 goal. So, he's only scored 8 goals in his
I think
career.
that's league goals, isn't it? He got 3 for Peterborough.
Yeah.
So
I always just do league.
Isn't that more than George Lloyd? That's still more than George Lloyd, I think, isn't it? So we're not upgrading, I think. Yeah,
maybe. Mike, what's your kind of like reflections on the signings?
Yeah, I think that Brook, I'd be absolutely stunned if he was ready to be part of the first team squad, other than just to sit on the bench. I mean, he might have to end up playing on Saturday, which would be extremely concerning, because he's not really played at this level before first team football. And we saw how long it took Cal Stewart to get up to speed. Is he up to speed yet? I mean, Saturday would make you think he still needs to work on the touch and the finishing. So I see him as just a punt for the future. I don't really see him as improving the first team squad. Caveat, obviously, the only player we've got who can play in that position. He looked all right on Saturday. He didn't really get his pace away because he was quite well managed by the fullback he was up against. But he's strong. He's quick. He delivered a few balls into the box. He looks like he can be effective once he gets to know his teammates. It's probably hard to judge him on Saturday because he literally signed the day before.
They stuck 2 on him, didn't they, at times, Mike?
Yeah, and they just held him up. They didn't let him get away.
Elsewhere. But that should help. If other teams did that, if you got 2 players watching him, it should create space elsewhere. But that's up for us to make the most of that. We didn't really do that on Saturday.
But I thought he had a positive impact, and it was refreshing to see somebody who was willing to run with the ball and run into channels. We've not been in the channels at all this season, so having somebody out, getting on that touchline a bit more was quite refreshing to see. And then, the striker, I don't know anything about him, but a different option up front would be good, because I've not really enjoyed watching Marquise this season, even though he's bagged 2. He's disruptive, playing on that 10. He breaks up more than he makes when we go forward. I think he sort of slows us down. Lloyd, I've never been convinced by, and obviously we've got rid of Matter anyway. So I'm excited to see a different person up top. Hopefully he can be the difference maker. But like I say, it's improved areas that were a problem, but it's not improved the biggest problem areas, I think, is what I would say.
And I've just finished watching the Stanley game for my sins. So I missed it because I was on holiday and I wanted to watch it. That means I've watched every game this season. And for me, the problem, like you were saying this in our WhatsApp group today, Mike, like playing Clucas on the left wing back position he's probably is better than Benning and Nurse, which is terrible. We've got those 2 players in our squad and paying them a wage. They're worse than a central midfielder we sign, and we can't really play Clucas in midfield because we've kind of done that experiment and it hasn't worked that well. Maybe we could try again. Who knows? We played England and Perry midfield, and Perry does what he can, and England's a 17-year-old lad, so that's not going to last the whole season. And I have to mention Sang, who's played most of his games at right centre-back for Port Vale, and Mickey Moore signed him, gave him the number 10 shirt, and all of a sudden he's supposed to be midfielder. Not convinced about that. And I just look at this team, and you've just got players, I don't know, I watched Stewart, I thought as well, tried hard, but end product is poor. And I just look at that whole left side of that team with Stewart and either or Klukas. I don't know. I just feel like the recruitment's been really poor overall.
Yeah,
I just don't feel like there's been a plan, has there? Like, and like in defence of Appleton, he's had to try and do his best in the last few days, and I don't know. I just feel quite disappointed. I don't feel optimistic at all. We scored 2 league goals so far this year. And I think everyone was praying that the transfer window was going to give us some hope. And I think we're still like, so if McDermott plays a lot of games in midfield, that's going to help. But you were talking, Mike, that you're saying you're concerned about the lack of legs in midfield.
Yeah, it's not legs in midfield. You know, Perry and Biggins will run all day. And I think this McDermott's got legs for days. They're fit lads. It's tackling. It's people who, it's that shield, the guy that sits at the base and breaks it up and gives it. You know, I mention him more often than most other players in this podcast. Abu Agoga, perfect example, who shields the back four and gives a base for the midfielders in front of him to play off. We don't have that. So
we don't even have to be a base. We just don't. But our midfielders don't win the ball back.
Well, exactly, but they always appear to be our midfielders always appear to be running back towards our own goals, particularly Perry, and giving fouls away in our half by having to tackle from behind almost. You know, always caught wrong side of the ball when there's an opposition attack on, because we just haven't got somebody in there who's can, or 2 people. We're very easy to play through the middle of. Now, funny you should mention England there, because I thought on Saturday for a 17-year-old lad in his home full first team debut, I think he was very pretty much our man of the match. I couldn't think of anybody else who played much better than him.
Really nice balls.
He controlled the middle of the park. He was really good, but he looked good against. We'll get to it. A really poor Accrington side. I thought they were awful, and he looked really good by comparison to his teammates who were in there, Perry and whoever else was running around there, because he was doing the simple stuff and he was doing it effectively. Now it just goes to show we have to sit and watch these other midfielders who just aren't up to it. And somebody like England could just slide in and make it look good. The problem is, as a 17-year-old, first year in first team football, it will probably tail off after a while. It's very unlikely he's going to have a stellar match every game. But we're already sort of saying, well, he's the first name on the team sheet in the midfield. It's a big ask to pin on a young player. I hope he has a fantastic season. I hope he plays every game and he's our man of match in every one. But for a young lad, I'd be worried there's a little too much pressure on him possibly after that performance, but he very much impressed me. It's just the other midfielders. There's not enough bite in there. There's not enough brute force to break other teams up, I think. Yeah.
And just before, I just want to comment to Max Matter in a second, but for me also, probably the biggest job for Appleton now is we haven't mentioned Biggins. Obviously, we've still got Nurse and Bennett, we've already mentioned the centre-backs haven't started that well, and Marquis is appalling. Like, his all-round play, as you mentioned, Mike, is shocking. That we need now the coaches to improve the players that we have. So we're all praying, weren't we, that the transfer window was going to fix this mess. We signed a number, as we've said, but obviously we wanted everyone to change, let's be honest. So it's up to the coaches now to try and do something, Chris, with this squad. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, I think Appleton is trying with shape and tactic, because I noticed on Saturday when we had the ball, either Anderson or Boyle were stepping up into the midfield. They were getting involved in the attacks, but I think more often than not to be a body in the middle if we lost the ball and people were going to break through us. So he's trying to put some more steel in there, a bit more physicality. I think it helps when we're up against one striker, so you can sacrifice that one defender to go and help out. So he's trying to get something in there, because we haven't got it in any of the existing midfielders. So I think he's trying to adjust his tactic and go to 4 at the back and freeing up bodies here and there is a way of doing it. But I don't suppose any of these players are going to get better, was what I would say. I'm not expecting any of these players to get trained on to be twice as good as they are at the start of the season. You know, Marquis isn't getting better. Anderson, Boyle, and Stubbs, they are who they are.
Well, not necessarily better, but playing better with more confidence.
I think you can do that with a system rather than personnel or straight coaching. But it's I don't know. You look at the next game. You look at Saturday, and we haven't really added creativity. The other side of the pitch, the left wing back, to be able to get up and down with energy. It doesn't look too much of an improvement, I think, is how I would term it.
Any comments, Chris, before we talk about Max Matter?
we've been linked with a couple of left wing backs in the last week or so. Josh Ruffles, who's a player who played under Appleton before, and Liam McCarron, who's a left wing back who's played a number of clubs and I think possibly has got previous with Appleton as well. Both those two are free agents. Both those two, to my knowledge, are still free agents. So if the interest in those was genuine, and it's been reported in a few places, then there's still a chance one of those could happen. So we wait and see. But if they are interested, why it's taking so long, I don't know. But I'd guess players could, if they know they've got interest in them, they can hold out as long as possible, and they're trying to negotiate the best deals for themselves as well. But we clearly need something in that position, don't we? So yeah, I really hope one of those does come off, especially Ruffles, who I think would be, for people who know him, 31-year-old player, so not too old, lots of experience, real quality, mostly at championship level. He'd be a good addition for us. So if something like that happens, then you start to feel a bit more positive. But he's a bit younger. He's only 31.
Even at 31 though, if he's been without a club and not done a pre-season, he can't hit the ground running. He's going to take.
He's been in that PFA pre-season. He's been playing in those games. So he's played 5 or 6 games for the PFA team.
But he's not the same as being in the squad. But I take your point. I did ask a few people about him, and he's always played more of a left back. So whether that,
if we're going to switch to a 4 at the back, that might not be a bad thing either.
No, I would love that. I really would love it. I don't know. It's not really against the formation per se. I'm just sick of 3 at the back. I think most Tudor Town fans are, because we've just been losing for years, playing 3 at the back. So maybe that could help. But talking of going on now to Max Matter, I did put something on Twitter earlier on today, and someone did actually come up with probably a better example. I said, is he the worst signing in Shrewsbury Town history? I think it's fair to say he's the worst signing this century, especially in the summer that we'd got rid of Cottrell, the summer that we said that we had no money, the summer we said that we made over £3 million worth of losses, the summer where we started reining the budget in. We signed Mickey Moore, and his mate Matt Taylor flew over to Ireland and spent over €200,000 on a striker who scored 1 goal. And
200,000, you're saying now?
No, 100,000. Sorry,
100,000,
I said 100. Yeah, and yeah, it's 100,000 per goal, and it's like nearly €4,000 per appearance. Absolutely, I feel sorry for the lad, because obviously he struggled, but from a Shrewsbury Town fan and financial perspective, Mike, Max Matt has been a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, and he's been here under 4 managers. None of them have fancied him. Various systems, various ways of playing. He's had bad luck with poorly timed injuries. I think there's an element of homesickness in there as well. But I mean, even when given an opportunity, he often puffed. He never looked right for it. He never looked like he had it in him. He was one of those players. And it goes back as far as I remember to people like Marco Adagio, Omar Rees. It's one of those that the less he played, the better people think he was. And I see a player in there. When you look back at it, he never did anything. He never sort of showed anything to give you hope that he would be a goal scorer. I mean, Dan's claim, bet with me at the start of the season that he was going to get 12 goals this season. I think I might cash out on that now. I don't know if he's doing early cash out. But yeah, for me, it's not a loss, because he never really featured anyway. It's just another wage off the books. And good luck to him. If he does go back to New Zealand, hope he does okay. Good luck, Max.
I thought in the summer he did look all right. I thought he actually in the preseason games looked bright, and then he gets injured again, and he's had awful luck, and you just wonder if his heart was in it. I understand he's engaged to a New Zealand, is it basketball player or netball player or something? He's obviously got a life back in his home country, and it must have been hard to be sitting around in Shrewsbury injured. So if it's probably best for all parties that he moves on. And the only other comment I made, the transfer fee, I don't know. Do we know that all of the 100,000 of that was paid up front, or would that have been what it was had he scored so many goals and all this kind of stuff? Do we know what we actually spent on it?
I don't know,
because it might have been less.
I can't remember. I remember the 100,000 stays in my head. I can't remember talking to different journalists and different people whether that was, but they all said it was over 100k euros, and that was Irish sources as well. So, and I can't imagine that they would want, so I don't know, even if you call it 80, it's still like the situation we're in. It's like 1 player's wage for the year wasted. Not to mention, obviously, the wages we paid him as well. So, yeah, terrible signing. We were talking with me in the WhatsApp group about other signings. So yeah, Tony Lewis mentioned a player that was played for Shrewsbury before we were born, Mike. So I think it's acceptable that we don't know this gentleman.
Not before I was born.
No, not you, mate, not new. You can tell from the grey hair. So John Dungworth, who signed to Shrewsbury in 1980.
79.
Was it 79 he actually signed then, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, Shrewsbury Town brought him for equivalent of £100,000 back in 1980. I was sad enough to use the Bank of England to put that into today's money. In today's money, that's £430,000. Mike, could you imagine Shrewsbury Town spending £400,000 on a player these days?
No, I can imagine us doing that in 10 seasons. And the thing about values you were discussing earlier on the WhatsApp, it got me thinking, this is real evidence of how poorly we've kept up with the finances of football as a football club.
Yeah,
we're miles behind where we were spending money in the 80s, but in relative terms, we are, and it all goes back to one person at the top who's not got investment in, and the stewardship and the finances of the club. It's all goes back to the
skint. And I think that's what we probably have to reflect on this window is the why, and the why is we're absolutely skint. We can't afford, in previous years, to fair to Roland to give him some credit for a second. I'm sure people are throwing stuff at the speaker or whatever now, but we used to go out, didn't we, and do the extra one signing. So Ben Godfrey was an extra signing that Roland kind of funded himself, and we do extra bits. Obviously, Grant Holt signings, spending money, but those days are long gone.
That's a long time ago now when you think about it, and also
really long time ago.
For whatever's going on with takeover or no takeover, whatever, that this might have been his last transfer window as chairman, and that he didn't try and do something. Do you know? Yeah, we hope it is. Fucking hell, let's get rid of him. But that for legacy or for all his claims of being a huge Shrewsbury Town fan, which he is, he's been around a long time, but that he didn't try and go out on a high transfer wise, or just find a few more quid from somewhere to get a left back in or to get a centre mid in. If that's as much as we could afford to do with the finances at our disposal, it's just it's a symptom of the running of the club over the past decade, 15 years,
and the way
our finances,
the
finances have just been allowed to go to rack and ruin. Post move from the old Meadow to the new, and the bank balance that we had. It's been pissed up the wall, frankly, isn't it? And this is what we end up with: a League Two team, nearly bottom, a shit transfer window, and it's a tough season ahead, I think.
Did you ever see John? Oh, sorry, I can't. First thing I pronounced his name wrong. Then I can't remember his.
Dungworth. No, I didn't. He was the big signing when we just got promoted to what is now the Championship in 1979. So celebrating getting to that level bit, but we obviously had more money in the club, and as you said, we splashed $100,000 on him. You bear in mind that $100,000 in 79 compared to the transfer fee record for the whole country, which was $1 million. Forest had just spent $1 million on Trevor Francis. So the money in football then was a lot less. $1 million was as most as anyone had ever spent, whereas now the top clubs are spending $125 million on Alexander Isak or whatever. So football's exploded financially, and yet we've got less money to spend than we did back in 1979, and that's in real terms, never in actual terms, rather, never mind real terms, because right now the idea of spending on $100,000 is obviously a pipe dream for us, and then that's something we were doing when I was 2.5 years old. So, but Dungworth didn't do that well. He really struggled, and which is why a lot of people talk about him being one of the worst signings in our history, because we lashed out all that cash on him and it didn't work. But that's because when you look for worse signings, don't you? You're looking for return on investment, as it were, and the return on the Dungworth investment was low. Clearly, it was on Matter. If you're talking about this century, one that was pointed out to me today that I'd mention as well would be Nathan Elder. After we lost Holt, we splashed out $100,000 on Nathan Elder, and that is one that you two might both remember. He didn't do a lot for $100,000 either.
No, he was a right cart horse, wasn't he? Yeah, he didn't really do much. Yeah. The point about Dungworth, I read that he was good before he came to us, so at least that signing sort of made sense in that he'd scored goals prior to coming to the town. But Elder was a shocker.
He scored one in 2 games. Yeah,
we were taking him up 2 divisions. It was a Division 4 striker being given a crack in Division 2.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Any final the Irish League, I suppose. Yeah.
Any final comments on the window? There is rumours that one other player will leave. We'll have to see what happens there. Anything else on the window? Let's maybe fly
Not
through
yet.
some of these games. So
keep your eyes on the free transfers,
Yeah, so pray, maybe we can sign someone. But as you say, Mike, they're not going to be up to match full speed fitness straight away. So the games, unfortunately, in league format, league-wise, 2 defeats and a draw. Shooter Town lost to Notts County 4-1, lost to Swindon 2-1, beat Chelsea under 21s in the EFL Trophy, and then obviously we drew 0-0 against Accrington Stanley on Saturday. Obviously, going back, the Notts County game was an absolute shambles. It was, really, really, really bad. Absolute car crash in every way. Swindon was incredibly frustrating. And then I'd say Accrington are the worst team we've seen and probably gives us some hope. Cheltenham sound like they're in trouble, but maybe Accrington Stanley and Cheltenham could be 2 teams that could save us. But going back, Mike, any comments on the Notts County Swindon games? Almost the Notts County and Swindon games, in my head, to be honest, I almost want to forget because they were that bad.
Yeah. Well, the Notts County game was especially bad for me because that was my birthday. So I had a lovely day. I wasn't allowed to have it off work, so I'd been at work. I came back, had a bit of time with the kids, and then sat down and watched that absolute shower of shite. And it was a perfect end to a perfect day. I think the Swindon and the Notts County games probably rehash a lot of the themes from the last podcast, really. A lot of themes around the lack of pace at the back, very exposed down the flanks, lack of composure on the ball, inability to create chances, the very, very rare chances we get, absolutely no chance of converting them. Well, actually, we did score 2 goals in those games, to be fair, but the one was a miss it. Was that the one with the miss it shot at County, or was that Sang? That was the game before, wasn't it?
No, that's Sang. Yeah, Sang was the first.
That was a miss it shot, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sang was the miss it shot.
Yeah, and wasn't the goal against Swindon where Boyle kicked it into Stewart's back and it went in? So not classic liquid football or anything like that. A couple of freak goals anyway that we did score, and just the same mistakes all over the park. It sort of didn't really see. I think in between these 2 games, we'd had Appleton in the press saying, this is a reset, or this is my team now, or you're going to see something different. And we didn't. Again, it was the same again.
We have seen some
couple of games, I think.
Maybe we'll come on to that in a minute. So, Mike, I agree. There's no real end improvement in terms of like you say, it's just quite, you take the Chelsea game out, I think it's hard to put too much on that. Yeah, we scored a goal against someone's back and a miss hit. Which I know everyone loves XG, but we in the league games we should have scored 5 goals so far according to XG. If you don't like it, you don't like it, whatever. But we've actually scored 2, it's really poor to have only scored two goals so far. But just before we come on to the standing game, maybe we can do that one in a bit more detail because I think there is something a bit more to talk about in that game. Thoughts on the Swindon and Notts County game, Chris?
So the Notts County game, I wanted to just comment on what the manager had to say and the disparity maybe between some of his comments on and what we saw. So, because I was quite critical of Appleton in the last podcast, and at the end of Notts County, I probably still was. He made a comment in that game that it was a 50-50 game, and he doesn't understand how we've lost a 50-50 game 4-1, and he's repeated that.
Yeah.
Mental.
And to me, I find it hard to see where he's coming from because I thought I agreed entirely with Mike's assessment of the Notts County game. We were dreadful, and we were dreadful in both halves of that game. And even though there were periods in that game where we had more of the ball, as he said, we rarely looked like scoring. It was a game where we were well and truly stuffed. And there's no doubt Notts County fans were panning us online after the game, worst team they've seen in years and all this kind of thing. So I find it hard to listen to him say that it was a 50-50 game that we'd lost 4-1. I will say for the Swindon game, he again, the manager talks about the second half of that game being when things started to turn for us. He thinks we were a lot better in the second half against Swindon. And this time I can see a bit more where he's coming from. When we got that equaliser in that game, it was the scrappy goal you described, but we deserved it. And I remember a lot of us were saying online who were watching it, blimey, we do actually deserve that equaliser. The frustration for me there was the mentality, having finally got that equaliser and frankly looked quite comfortable in the second half. Swindon had barely threatened our goal. They promptly within 3 minutes stroll up the other end and bang in the winner. And that was painful, because I can't imagine what that was going to do psychologically for our team. So that really hurt, because I felt we did deserve a point from that game, and we messed it up through not being able to see it out. And that was really, really disappointing, because I did think there had been some progress. And then in the 2 games that we'll come on to since, Chelsea, a different game, against a bunch of under-21s, but there's no doubt we were decent that night. I watched that game on telly, and it was a good watch. We deserved to win that game, despite falling behind. And there was more progress against Accrington, wasn't there? So I feel we have progressed a bit. I just think it's just, one, we have to sustain it, and 2, we're going to have to improve more, because the fact is we still only drew with an Accrington team who, as we've said, are probably going to be down there with us.
Yeah,
that's the point, isn't it? A lot of people are saying how bad Accrington were, and that hopefully there's 2 of them and they can be below us, but we're not taking points off them. We didn't take points off. Well, we're taking our point off. We're not beating them. Same with Bromley. We didn't beat them, even though people said they were limited and stuff. We didn't get the goals needed to beat them. So there's no reason to think that we're going to be better off. And then, Notts County will tell you we're the worst team they've seen this season. So what we're saying about Accrington, plenty of other people are saying about us. This isn't a one-way street of a conversation. So we're as in much trouble as them, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's fair to say the 4 big centre backs didn't work. I don't think that teams have done that in the past, and play 4 big centre backs, and even dare say Arsenal often sometimes play with 4 like tall players in the back line to try and.
Was it Notts County? We picked 5 of them. We played 3 centre backs and then 2 full backs who were actually centre backs.
So it was
an interesting team selection.
And against County,
against Swindon, it was a 4 centre backs, wasn't it?
Yeah. But against County, I remember is it Jody Jones who plays for them? He had the run of the park, because our big slow centre halves and our big slow, they couldn't get anywhere near him. He just had a bit of pace and a couple of tricks, and he ran the show. He was unbelievable, and we just couldn't get hold of him because we just couldn't get anywhere near him.
So is obviously you can obviously turn things in 2 ways. Is Appleton kind of lost and just playing random tactics now to see what fits, or is he trying to evolve the team? One thing he's definitely stopped doing is we stopped playing the ball out from the back.
Yeah.
So that has gone. So we're still playing passing football. We're letting our centre backs sometimes have the ball and play a role around the back and try and find spaces. But playing out the ball out from the back has gone. I see some people saying we are doing that, but we're not. And also, we do seem to be bypassing the midfield sometimes as well. So there's been some evolution there, Mike, but obviously it hasn't. Yeah. Or Chris hasn't created anything.
No, I'm glad to see the back of the every single time the centre half passing it to the goalkeeper, because County was the death knell of that. They set up on the edge of our box every single time and came straight in, and we just gave them the ball back every time. And that was one of the main problems we had, is they kept recycling the ball sort of in our third, essentially, from the goal kicks. It makes us a little bit more sensible. It keeps the ball away from our goal a bit more by sending it long. So I think, like you say, Appleton is adjusting his tactic. There's been a bit more of a sign of, a flat 4 in the system, where we might start with 3 centre backs, but one jumps up into the middle, the 4 backs drop in deep, and it becomes a 4 with a centre half playing sort of in that holding role. So he's trying to arrest some of the problems he's seen. So he's obviously doing something about it. He's not as wedded to his system as I thought he would be. He's not Ruben Amorim, who is sticking to it no matter what. So he's trying to adjust game by game to try and fix the problems. And I think, as Chris said, as poor as they were against Accrington, we created more. We certainly were poor at finishing, but there was ball across the box from the new winger that we got in. There was some decent snapshots from the edge of the box. So we were creating more opportunities. I think Boyle had a couple of chances to score, didn't he? Even when he was going up. So
I want to have a look at the stats of who'd been having a lot of shots, and in some ways it's frustrating that probably say Boyle probably had 2 of our best chances. And he didn't really we should have scored. We absolutely should have scored. And in a team that wasn't as devoid of confidence as much as we are, most teams probably would have scored in that game. Yeah, as you say, Cabba had that turn when he came in and shot. Boyle had a couple of chances. Marcus had some chances. But not only we did have chances and we did have shots, and we made them work hard. They had to do a lot of time waste, didn't they, to try and kind of nullify us. We had 17 shots in total and 10 on target. But we should have had more than that. So, like you mentioned Stuart earlier on, Mike, that he's almost like that classic lower league footballer, where he does some things good, and you think, "Oh, go on, son, be good," and then he does some things which are a bit crap. So there's that a few pass crosses he could have done to Marquis, which never made find the man. So there's things that give you some encouragement. But yeah, even Klukas, some of his crossing was really poor as well. And just, final balls were just not good enough. And that's the bit that Appleton really needs to fix and improve.
Yeah, it's decision making as well. We're talking about Marquis as sort of an attempted 10, and he was a bit further up this time. But I think I texted you, Ollie, at one point. It was like a masterclass in selfishness from Marquis. He was constantly turning away from a square ball to create an opportunity to have himself a shot and run into traffic. And I get that he wants to. There's probably an element of him taking responsibility and trying to do it himself to try and push the team forward as captain. Maybe it's part of that, but he is quite a selfish footballer. Strikers are. But there were opportunities for him to lay on an easy chance. And I could just do with him being a bit more aware of the others in the box. Outside the box, I don't want to see him out there. I want him in the box, but just keeping his head up a bit more. Because, he sort of nullified us quite a few times when we got in relatively promising positions, which was quite frustrating. I don't know what you thought about Ackridge and Chris. You were quite relatively buoyed about it in just terms of performance, weren't you?
Yeah, it was a lot better. It was a lot better. It felt like a team that creates chances, and it just needs somebody now to actually put those chances in. At least it was decent to watch, and we should have won that game. That's the fact, isn't it? We should have won that game
Really
2 or 3-0, really, and we didn't. And I criticised Michael Appleton last time. I talked about him being. I was worried that he was, I think Mike's already covered it, a Ruben Amorim type, and he's kind of answered me on that one. He hasn't been wedded to his principles. He has adapted a little bit. And he's brought in players over the last few days to try and address weaknesses in our team. Clearly, we don't think he's addressed all of the weaknesses. Indeed, there's plenty more. But he has at least had a go. And I think he's done enough for me to deserve the chance to show what he can do over the next few weeks now. I wouldn't be sacking Michael Appleton next week, that's for sure, because he's put this squad together now. He's added a bit of pace to the team. I want to see what they can do now. Let's give them a few weeks and see what happens, because we haven't got much. I don't think chopping and changing is going to make any difference. I think we could sack him today, bring a different coach in, and we wouldn't be any better off.
No point changing manager, not at all.
If I'm honest, a few weeks ago I was starting to think he's part of the problem, but he's answered that a bit for me. So
two things that gives me hope about Appleton, not a load of hope, but a bit of hope, is one is that the players are clearly still working. They might be slow, they might be a bit crap, and they might make the wrong decision. They might not be able to pass to each other, but they are trying. And also, I was worried. I think part of this, maybe for you, Chris, was that playing the ball out the back, stupid tactics. We didn't even really know these players that much, but we knew that like Anderson and weren't going to be ball playing centre backs. It just wasn't going to happen. So at least Appleton is being pragmatic now in the tactics. He's making changes, and tell you who's probably the best person for doing long balls, Harrison. He's got a phenomenal kick on him. Yeah, he can really launch it some distance and really accurate. Some of the balls he did to Marquis in the game against Stanley was really good. So there's some hope, but
to temper the hope a little bit, I do applaud Appleton for his. I like to temper the hope, don't I, Chris? Don't want to get too hopeful. Second from bottom. I applaud him for tweaking tactics and finding different ways. But how, they worked on this, the starting tactic of the season, all summer. They built a squad for it. How we ever thought that was going to work with passing out from the back with these defenders. How we saw on the training pitch that he thought we were going to be able to play front to back and not get pressed out of possession and things. As much as I'm pleased that he's changing now, what was he thinking to start with that got us set up like that on the start of the season?
That's the worrying thing. All that time we've wasted.
Yeah, all the time we wasted, and the negative momentum and the negative sort of, the psychological impact of being near the bottom of the league and not scoring goals and not picking up points can have on a squad. We said in the pre-season pods, getting off to a good start this season was absolutely vital, and we have done the exact opposite. And that comes from preparation, squad building, and what the work they were doing on the training.
Well, I think Appleton talked about this, didn't he, Chris? You'd watched all the post and pre. He was surprised, wasn't he, about how we felt that we'd done all the right things and they felt the confidence was there. And just, when the reality hit, not that famous Mike Tyson quote, when you get punched in the face, all your plans go out the window, whatever it is. You're paraphrasing there, but the quote. And Bromley wasn't too bad, but then but then the games after that was poor.
You get the impression that some of the players might have been okay in pre-season when the pressure's off, and the minute the real thing has started again, they've reacted badly, and maybe he wasn't expecting that, because you look at Toby Savin, George Nurse, and Alex Gilead, all three players who clearly he doesn't want. The evidence has been there in the last 2 weeks. He's left them out the squad and kind of talked about that. All three of those were in his starting lineup for the first game. So I get the impression that wasn't maybe his opinion at the beginning of August. I think he's possibly been surprised by what he's seen from those players since the real thing started, and that's, again, you have to give him some credit. If he is concerned by what he's seen, he's not been scared to do something about it. He's dragged them out of the team, and it seems to be doing everything he can to take them out of the club as well. So if there is a problem, he's not slow to react to it. So that's a positive. I like to look for positives. I'm not going to give up yet. It's only it's the 1st of September, so I want to believe that things can get better. And I will say that he's not been slow in terms of making change and trying to do things a bit differently. And the midfield has been a lot better in the last couple of games than it was in the first couple of games, and that's because he's almost completely transformed the personnel in it. And it's exciting to have we've talked about relying on a 17-year-old, and I don't want to heat pressure on him, but it's great, isn't it, to have a Shrewsbury lad playing in the middle of the park for Shrewsbury Town and doing well.
Yeah.
I love that, and I really want, I really hope. I doubt he'll play 40 games this season, but I'd love it if he played 25 or 30 and was being talked about this time next year as one of our key players. That's great. That's what we want.
And got rid of Mickey Moore, so he's not going to try and sell him at the first opportunity.
If we haven't got a takeover, you worry about him getting through January, don't you? Because if he has played 15, 20 games by January,
he's going to be a
lot of scouts coming to watch a 17-year-old who plays every week.
I would tell them to go fuck themselves. He's just signed a 3-year contract, and we can't sell players after a few months.
As soon as somebody waves a wad of cash at Roll, he'd be gone, mate. If there's no takeover, they'll just take the money to pay next week's electric bill.
Wouldn't you love to know how much we sold Tom Bloxham for?
Oh yeah, not enough.
I bet it was billions.
Yeah,
but yeah, I would. For me, as you say, Chris, hopefully he did some really nice. That one ball he did to Klukas into the box was a phenomenal pass. And also really nice to see players pass the ball forward through the centre of the park.
Even when he got it wrong, at least he was trying, which is something, again, Appleton's talked about, actually. He doesn't mind the player making positive mistakes. I quite liked that phrase, because he's supporting him to keep trying doing those things.
But talking of mistakes, I had to talk about this. I've been giving him quite a bit of abuse on Twitter with Marquis. But in Swindon, there was 5 minutes where he couldn't control a throw-in. Couldn't control throw-in, lost several throw-ins, which is quite phenomenal. And then he controlled a ball to him near the halfway line, which you control so badly it started a Swindon counter-attack.
Who are you talking about? You cut out for me just before you said it. Marquis. Oh,
right. I didn't know who you were talking about either.
Sorry. I think you cut out just then. But
Marquis, hopefully he needs some competition. And if this new lad, let's call him Bradley by his first name, hopefully Bradley can put some competition on him. Maybe even your mate Lloyd could come into the side, Mike, and start up front. But yeah, we need some competition, and we need him to improve.
I think the thing about John Marquis is he does know how to score goals. He's the only player of ours that has scored goals from open play this season that weren't big mistakes or accidents or weird goals. But the thing is, we have been insisting until the Accrington game, we're playing him in this fucking withdrawn 10 role, trying to get him to link play.
He hasn't played that for a few games now, has he? He's playing up front.
Yeah, but he was still trying to do a bit of that on Saturday, and he can't do it. He's not quick enough with his feet. He can't spot passes. He's not aware of everything. He needs to be at the top of the pitch. If we're going to play him, right at the top of the pitch, getting on the end of stuff, scoring goals like he's done for his entire career, when that's where he's most effective. I'm not going to tell John Marquis how to play football. He's been doing it long enough. He's been far more successful. But I just wish he'd concentrate on just being in the right place and not worry about what everybody else is doing and not telling people off for not making the right pass or the right run and stuff, and just focus on his own game, because half the stuff that he complains at other people for, you see him balling them out and having a go at them, he then will do in the next 5 minutes. He will do exactly the same thing. And you think there's no consistency to it in his approach to the game. I just think stay at the top, John, try and put the ball in the net. And then if you start doing that, you can start having a go at people. But I just find him quite disruptive as an influence on the pitch. And it's frustrating, isn't it? And also, him trying to control it and going out of play doesn't really help his cause either.
No, he did in his defence. He did a few things. He was encouraging players against Stanley, which was quite nice to see. But yeah, it just we can't buy a win, and we just desperate, aren't we, for a bit of luck, to get a bit of luck and get a little bit of momentum going. But
It's
looking
going to
ahead,
be hard.
well,
Next two
yeah,
games, Barnet away, and then we've got Salford at home with a certain Daniel Udo now playing up front for them.
like, yeah, there's a certain club I'm not going to mention, but yeah, when you even get Salford signing players, obviously they've got a new cash injection this summer, and yeah, Dan Udo, who has been, as you said, Chris, has been playing for Wycombe, so they've gone out and signed him. So yeah, so our fixtures are quite tough. We've obviously got Walsall in the FL Trophy tomorrow at 7, then Barnet at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Interesting, actually, there's only one Tuesday game this month. So after the Warsaw game, we've got at least 4 games with only one game on Saturday. So that's going to give us some hope to obviously maybe improve our tactics and our coaching. So we've got Barnet, we've got Salford, we've got Harrogate at 12:30, which I know has annoyed a lot of people at 12:30 kickoff rather than 3. I might see if I can try and go to that one. And then we've got MK Dons at home, and hopefully we'll improve by the time MK Dons come around, because MK Dons has spent a lot of money. Then we've got Barrow, Cambridge, Crawley, and Oldham. Again, no Tuesday night games in October either. So we've got a big run now of games. When is the next Tuesday night game? The next Tuesday night game isn't until the 11th of November after that. So that's nearly 2 months of no Tuesday night games. And obviously, we got knocked out of the League Cup early. So, yeah, those fixtures might, I don't know. You've got to hope we're going to get a win somewhere. Barnet away isn't going to be easy. I can't believe we're saying that. Barnet away isn't going to be easy. And no disrespect to Barnet, but yeah, we're not playing Bolton and Ipswich Town anymore.
No, it's tough, isn't it? I don't know whether it's worth just mentioning, because we gave it some time on the last pod about the, against Accrington, there was purported fan protests coming up, but they didn't really. If anybody that wasn't there and was maybe wondering what happened, I was keeping my eye on, because there was the thing to stay in the concourse for 10 minutes and then come out. When I walked in with about 10 minutes before kickoff, there seemed to be nobody hanging around there. We went up to our seats. To be honest with you, I forgot about it. But then we remembered, and we kept an eye on the concourse 10 minutes in. Nobody seemed to appear out of there. And I'm not sure what happened to that, really. That was kind of supposed to be the big fan process, and it doesn't really happen. And there's not been much out of that 1886 group again. So I don't know whether something else is in the pipeline, or whether people just enjoyed going to the football and has been slightly better against Accrington. But yeah, we gave it a lot of run on the last pod, so probably worth just covering that nothing really seemed to come of it.
Well, we gave a lot of feedback and advice, potentially.
Yeah.
Can I turn us into Sky Sports transfer news here? I can give you a bit of breaking news live.
Let's finish this bit off, the protest bit, and then we'll come on to it, Chris. I've seen it as well. But there was 2 things, wasn't there? There was that one that was going to be like the
like
coffin.
a funeral procession.
Yeah, God knows, I have no idea what even happened to that. And yeah, obviously you guys were WhatsApping me, and I said, anything happened at 10 minutes, and you said no one came in. And posting a photo on Twitter isn't a protest group. Let's say it.
I think we were discussing it in the stands, because we were surprised how apparently even in the south stand we were looking and nobody seemed to come out, nobody went for it. I think back to the days of when we used to sell the fanzine with Glyn, and if you want to engage people, you've got to be a physical presence. And I was very surprised there wasn't. We need 2 things
before you can do that. You need a clear message, what's the purpose of the group? You need to make clear, and then you need to get it out there on the street.
But even just even just a bit more advice from having seen it done before. If you have somebody stood on Otley Road giving out flyers, reminding people, somebody on Super Blues Way, you're going to capture most of those fans coming to the stadium. At least it puts it front of mind. At least you've given them something physical they can remember, to get them engaged with it. I'm not saying that there should be no protests. I think the running of the club, even this transfer window has been pretty shit. So there should be pressure on a boardroom to get this sale over the line. I think I'll come to something I've sort of put in the agenda in a minute around what's going on with the sale. And I think, but if it's going to be done, it needs to be, a physical presence, capturing people in person on the day, being open to people shouting you down and telling you it shouldn't be done, but being able to coherently pass your message across. Yeah, exactly. Just messages on Twitter don't work. Because...
But that's the thing I just want to point out. The message boards are just echo chambers. It's the same people talking to themselves. And then Twitter is what it is. And as we said on the last podcast, most Shooter Town fans are 50 plus, male, probably not on social media. And then also, yes, you need to get the message out there. And yeah, I've got no. I think fan pressure is probably going to become maybe important, and we probably do need to start being a bit more vocal and a bit more organised. But
I would say a purpose for fan pressure is perfectly what I put on the agenda here. Is it's 2 weeks ago today that Liam Dooley put out his last update, and in it he said, "I'm really pleased to report advanced talks are ongoing with one prospective party. Great, we're trying to get it sold, and we hope to enter an exclusivity period in the coming days and weeks." Well, it is now 2 weeks since that statement. It's gone very, very quiet, and I think it's incumbent on the club to update the fans. What's going on? What the new timescales look like? Are there still people interested? Has this fallen through? Because to put out a message like that, and we've been waiting weeks,
Put time
a
on
matter
it.
of days, he's put time on it, so he's got to update us. And if that isn't done, that's a great reason for a protest. What's going on? Tell us about the takeover. Where are we at with Roland being selling up and leaving the club? That's a coherent message around a protest, which I think you can get people behind. But I just thought it worth mentioning when I was thinking about the protest and what's happening with the takeover. And it's gone very quiet again. My feeling, having been through this before, like we did with the failed American takeover, I feel like it's another thing that's fallen through. I've got nothing to back that up. I've not heard any rumours, but the lack of
faith
noise coming out of that club, and the lack of rumour or conjecture or noise or anybody being linked to it or anything coming out at all makes me think that once again we might be stuck with that takeover. I've got no faith in it happening.
Any comments on protest takeover, Chris, before we go on to breaking news?
No, just the line that is in the agenda that was pulled out by Mike. It's where Liam said that we hope to enter an exclusivity period in the coming days and weeks. It's quite a vague phrase. I didn't like that days or weeks thing because there's a big difference between a few days and a few weeks. You could argue, he'll probably argue, well, that was only a couple of weeks ago. I did say it could be days or weeks. So but they can string that out for another 4 or 5 weeks and still say, well, it's days and weeks. So it's just a bit vague. I've no idea what's going on there either. You hear rumors and things, but I know nothing at all. And like you, Mike, I'm usually quite positive about this stuff, but I struggle to be excited about a takeover when we're getting no news on it and no updates on it. And all we ever get is, non-disclosure agreements. And yet other clubs continually manage to do it. So, I find that a little bit frustrating that we don't know what's going on there.
Well, hopefully when we go into exclusivity, because I remember when Leyton Orient having their takeover recently, it was mentioned, they announced who was trying to do it. Even Morecambe, famously, everyone knew who was trying to buy them. So hopefully there can be some transparency, because I don't think anyone believes, no one just believes what we're being told anymore. The faith and the disconnect between the fan and the club has probably never been bigger.
If this was just a Shrewsbury Town thing on its own in isolation and we didn't know how it worked in other places, you'd probably go along with it. But we see other clubs, the communication that they give, the speed at which some of these takeovers are done, and the clarity given to supporters of other clubs is something that we just don't get. Even we have one prospective party, we hope to enter exclusivity. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean they still have to go over the books? Does that still mean even if we go into exclusivity, we're 6 months away? Or if you go into exclusivity, is that crossing the I's and dotting the T's? Is a takeover close? It doesn't give us any idea of what's going on, or even who these people are, what even industry they're from. Have they got other sporting interests? You could give us more information, even still, if you don't want to tell us who it is. But the fact that nobody knows, even anybody who's linked with it, Shrewsbury Town is not the CIA. It's not the master secret keeping organisation. It usually gets out. And the fact that there's no name, not even a nationality, nothing, makes me think there's nothing there. And do you know what? Tomorrow they might announce a takeover and I'll look like an idiot. But I'm only going what we've got at the moment, which is, it's nothing, is it? But going back to that, Chris, what's the new transfer news? What's getting us excited? Who have we signed, Chris? Come on, tell us.
I wish it was that exciting. It's just the other departure we were all expecting. So Alex Gilead has gone, but only on loan until January to Carlisle United. So he's off to join Carlisle and play alongside Morgan Feeney. So
who on earth is in charge of the Carlisle transfer strategy? Has Mickey Moore gone there? Because they had Feeney office, they had Biggins office. Now they've got Gilead. I mean, poor Carlisle fans. I feel really sorry for them.
It's just it's another Hurston Moore masterclass and another player who played for us last year in League One, who's now playing the non-league. And I'm really disappointed. I don't know what's going on. It's obviously we had our using a Man United, well, not a Man United phrase. It's a phrase that's been used a lot with Man United. This phrase called the bomb squad, which basically just the players you want to get rid of. And obviously there's BBC Shropshire and did actually mention Nurse, Gilead and Savin. So Savin's gone, Gilead's gone, and no news about Nurse. But I'm really disappointed in Gilead. I don't know obviously what's happened, but I really thought, Bradford fans were saying he was good for them in League Two. And I thought he was going to do something, Mike. He clearly hasn't, but I thought, I was looking for hope and trying to be optimistic during the summer. and I thought that Gillard would in League Two would actually be decent for us, and yeah, now he's playing in non-league.
No. Again, I never saw anything in it, and League Two stronger than it used to be. Dropping from League One to League Two doesn't seem to have made any difference.
No, but he did all right for Bradford in League Two.
Yeah, he didn't do any good for us. And the Bradford fan I know, he said he was amazed we bought him in League One. He thought he was terrible. So maybe different Bradford fans have different opinions. But see you later, Alex. Well, we might see him back in January. He might come back for the promotion push. You never know.
Any other final comments, guys? We've covered the transfers. We've covered the games. We've touched upon protests and takeovers. Any final thoughts?
I just really hope it gets better. I don't like not enjoying watching football. I don't like not wanting to, not looking forward to the matches. I hope that these couple of signings we've made can improve the team. I hope that we can turn the ship. That Appleton has the tactical idea to do it. We don't run this podcast to moan. Well, I don't want to moan, do you? You guys don't want to moan. We want to come on and
really funny
talk about the goals we scored and the players that we enjoy, but we get sort of labelled as doom mongers a bit. But that's kind of the vibe around the club. But fingers crossed it turns around. But if it doesn't, we got to let them know is the thing. Yeah.
Well, my wife said to me, "Have I given up yet?" And as a football fan, you don't really think like that. But the amount of time we spent watching a team in blue and amber not score goals and be terrible.
It's interesting you should mention that giving up, because I suppose it's worth relating now. We've had a few home games. Attendances are down again. The attendances continue to be below what they were last season, and that's a natural drop-off you would expect by going, down the
And you can't just blame the away fans as well. So obviously away fans is less. But 4,700 again.
The concourses, the food outlets, just the general block, looking at the blocks, they're all quieter. And it's, again, it hits us in the pocket then, doesn't it? Match day income's down. So again, we're poorer on being poorer, which is just the frustrating thing about us not trying to do more to stay up last season. But, we kind of end up going around in circles a bit, don't we? Have you got anything lighter to go us out on, Chris? Have you got any more positive?
Yeah, Chris, you're going to give us some hope.
Come on, man. Help me out.
We need Dan for that. Dan's always got the funny little anecdote to finish, hasn't he? I've not bumped into Gareth Ainsworth in a service station or anything like that. So
I was hoping when I was at Oxford Services on Saturday night I might bump into him, but no, wasn't to be. No. So thanks guys for joining me. We'll go again. We'll be back again in a few weeks. Again. Maybe we get to talk about a win. Probably not.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But thanks everyone for listening. Let us know your thoughts on the pod, and we'll be back again soon.
Thanks very much, everyone. Speak soon.